Hey there guys, how's it going? This was originally going to be a one-on-one tutoring session for a friend of mine. However, we thought, why not make this into a YouTube video, as it's a question I get asked a lot, and that is, how do I process Askar D1 and D2 filter set data, as it can be a little bit of a challenge for people. It's also new to me, to be quite honest with you, but I had some good luck in getting a nice result and was able to go from the starter data set to something looking pretty nice in very little time. So this is how I did it. This is intended, as I say, just to be a bit of a run through a process along a tutorial. The data isn't available for this, but let's dive in. So what I'm going to start to do, of course, is just pull the D1 and D2 data right here onto the screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify them first. So I will try to apply a screen transfer function. You can see the data shown up very green. So I'm going to unlink the stretch, just that little chain link icon right there. And now we can see a little bit better what's in the data. I'm doing this initially so I can get a kind of an idea of what's going on in the data, and also to identify for sure which filter is which. So we can see this is almost certainly the HA03 filter, as it's predominantly taken over by that very rich HA in this region. So I'm going to rename it just very quickly. So this one's going to be HA03, just a simple identifier. And this one is almost certainly, again, the sulfur 2 oxygen 3. So I'm going to rename that appropriately as well. So sulfur 2 oxygen 3. Now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to actually extract the channels from these, because part of this is going to be basically getting usable channels to make a traditional, like a mono SHO combination. That's the plan that I've got for this. So to do that, I'm going to first use the little icon just at the top here, split RGB channels on the HA03 image. I'm going to click that, and now I've got HA03 R, G and B all present. I can at this point just minimize or close that window even. I'm going to do the same thing for the S203 right now, so I'll click that same button, and now we've got S203 R, G and B as well. So minimize the opposite channel right there, and we can move on a little bit with processing now. First off, we're going to start tackling this HA03. I'm going to stretch each of these channels, just pull them somewhere so that they're visible. R, G and B once again, so I've got all three on my my window. The red is going to do a pretty good job of just isolating and extracting the HA, so I'm going to rename this. This will now be our HA channel. So I'm going to rename it as such and just move that to one side. We've got that locked in now. That's in position. Now between these two, the blue and the green, usually, generally speaking, you're going to find the green is actually the smoother of the channels. So while you could, if you wished, apply a pixel math combination of 50-50 or any other weighting of your choice to try and get some data from both of these, I think the wisest choice, rather than adding kind of poorer data from the blue channel and polluting the much cleaner green channel data, is to simply cut your losses and delete the blue channel entirely, and proceed with this as one part of our oxygen 3 channel that we're going to eventually combine together to make a master O3. So I'll rename this one O31, just for a simple reminder as what we're dealing with. I'm going to put that also to one side. Now the next three channels that we're going to work with right here, of course, I'm going to give these the same treatment, so a quick stretch on all three so we can see exactly what we're dealing with. The red channel is going to do a wonderful job of isolating the sulfur 2, so that's another discrete channel that we've just got for ourselves. So I will rename that now to S2. That's locked in. That's our sulfur channel. So I'll move that with the complete ones just there. And once again, if you compare the green and the blue side by side, I think it's pretty plain to see. If you take a look at the amount of noise present in the data, the blue is noisier than the green. So the same thing really, rather than trying to make a combination of these two, just get rid of the blue, cut your losses, it's fine. Now this one we are going to combine with that first oxygen 3 channel, so identifier for this one is going to be O32, just keep it simple. And now with these two open, we should have two pretty good combinable O3 channels. So I'm going to go ahead now to process and pixel math, make a new destination, create new image, and we're just going to call this quite simply O3, keep it simple. And the math combination that we're going to use for this is O3 1 times 0.5, I want a 50-50 combo, plus O3 2 times 0.5. I'm going to go ahead, run that combination, and now we have an O3 channel combined of those two results. It should be smoother than either of them on their own, and indeed it does look to be so. So I'm going to just go ahead, I'll minimize those two and move them off the screen at this point in time. You could just close them down as you're done with them, but what we've got now is 3 discrete narrowband channels. So we've got a HA, an S2, and an O3. Now there's gradients and stuff present in these, don't worry about that just yet. We're going to tackle all of those in a moment, but of course we need to get these put together now. So I'm going to go to color, channel management rather, channel combination, and we're going to go for the traditional SHO mapped to RGB. So the R channel is going to be sulfur, so sulfur 2, hydrogen alpha in that green, HA, and then our O3 channel that we just finished combining right there, O3 in the B. I'm going to go ahead and apply. And now we should have, it'll be way out of color balance of course, but we should have an image that we can work with. Now at this point, it's fair to say my friend had drizzled this data, so it's pretty big. What I am going to do, just for the sake of the tutorial and keeping things snappy at this point, is I will just run it through resample. So process, all processors, and resample, if you can just find it really quickly. Yep, there we go, resample. And it's image 11. I'm going to do it, 50%. So 50% resample. Go ahead and apply that. Now it'll process much faster for us to deal with in this case. Now, first things first, let's get rid of some of this gradient. To do that, I'm going to use GradientXTerminator. And we'll just run it at defaults. It should do a pretty good job for the sake of demonstration. Anyway, you could be, of course, more careful with this, should you need to be. All right, there we go. It's done a good enough job. It's not perfect, but it's okay for the sake of demonstration. And now I want to get this image also stretched. So currently it's just still linear data, but before we do that, I am going to go ahead and apply some BlurXTerminator. Pass it through that real quick. All right, so BlurXTerminator has finished applying right there. Now I'm actually a little bit concerned about this data being not that rich, so before I apply NoiseXTerminator, I'm actually going to go ahead and stretch it now using HT stretch, as it'll make the overall stretch a bit less severe, and then I will NoiseXTerminate now after the fact. That should help keep things a little bit more in check for this data. All right, there you have it. We've got nice clean data to work with at this point now. It's done a wonderful job all in. As I said, the background extraction's not been perfect, but that's something you could work with for sure. Now, in order to try and pull this into a little bit better shape, what I'm going to do is take the stars out at this point, as I'm fairly happy with the color of them. If you wished, you could, I will just show you for the sake of demonstration. Go to scripts and correct magenta stars, which is right there, and execute that on this image. That should get rid of any of that fringing that was otherwise present around some of these stars. But now I am going to pull the stars out just for a moment before we move on to the next steps of processing. Okay, so the stars are out. Just going to move these off to one side, and now we're going to work on the main image of the Pac-Man itself. Now obviously the color balance is way out, so the best tool for this I find is narrowband normalization. Open this up, and with the reset of the tool, if you just jump onto SHO mode right there, you can roughly see what's going on in this image. Now, it's fair to say these sliders are going to need a little adjustment, so I'm going to apply some SCNR, about half full strength. The O3 boost, not really required much on this image, so I'm just going to give it just a touch on that. But the sulfur could certainly stand a boost, I would say, so I'm going to take that up to around about 1.5 or so. And that to me looks like a workable starting point for this data. Now, in terms of lightness modes, I'm probably just going to use preserve on this. You may also wish to opt for HA, but looking up close on this, if I just try to bring the view in a little bit, between the two, I think I'm just going to go with preserve, as it just looks more aesthetic to my eye to begin with. So tool reset, close down. We've now got a starting point that's a little bit closer to ultimately what we're going to be looking for in this image. Now the black point's a bit high, which is going to make some of the later adjustments with masking prone to error, I would say, overall. So you can see some of this background is kind of mottled with a brownish color, which is going to get picked up when we try to use a yellow mask. So if I just demonstrate that for you, you should probably see like a mottled kind of background, which is going to be hard to work with. So what I'm probably going to do to try and get rid of some of that, this should work, is you could use histogram transformation on image 11 right there and just pull along the black point, and that should make it a little bit easier to distinguish what's going on in the rest of this image and hopefully make the mask a little bit more discriminatory. But if it doesn't, there is another way we can deal with things as well. So it hasn't. It's fine. It's a perfect opportunity actually to demonstrate another way of doing things. But obviously, it's important that I show you when things go wrong as well, because it's not the end of the world. we can still deal with this. So I've just made a yellow mask, as I've said, and now I've just applied a few passes of mask blur just to soften that thing out a little bit. And I'm going to drop this underneath. We've got a masked image. Time to take it to curves. Open up the curves transformation window, and I'm going to bring the view in just a bit as well. Now for me, obviously this is like an insipid yellow, so I'm going to start to add some red to this region that we've just masked. So I'm going to bring up the reds. We're starting to get towards this kind of coppery outer tones just over there, looking nice. Now the edges are still kind of that plain yellow, which, you know, I don't think anybody's really a fan of. So I'm going to now take up the greens to push these closer towards yellow itself, while taking away some of the green lows, giving us a nice effect going through. So now we do have some yellowish golds down into kind of rose golds into coppers kind of going on in this image. If we just take a look before and after, before and after, hopefully you can see what effect that has had just with those kind of 3 pips really on the curves tool. Now it could potentially take that second move, but I think it's just a little bit too strong for me. So I'm going to keep this same mask. I want to move just up a touch this time on the reds. And again, kind of the same sort of movement on the greens as before, but just in a smaller overall manner. And I like that as a second step. So again, you can see now before, after, before, after. We're getting there, you know what I mean? It's looking pretty good. So I'll reset that tool, close that down, and we can discard that mask now. We're finished with it. Now the core color is pretty good already, I would say. It's a nice neutral O3 color, but just for the sake of, let's say if yours is not, I'll show you what to do with this. You're probably going to be looking at either a cyan mask or a blue mask. For this, I'm just going to select blue mask. Again, bit of mask blur on this thing. It doesn't matter that the background hasn't worked. It doesn't work every time, doesn't truncate in the background. You may have to actually truly truncate the data and make your masks from a sacrificed image, but that's a tutorial for another day, basically. But let's just take a look now at this core color. If I just add, for example, a small amount of blue, we're of course going to push it more towards blue. If we go too far, you start pushing it towards being dominated by blue and red, giving you, of course, purple. But a little bit is a nice step. It gives us still an effect going from these kind of tealish colors around here into a more bluish hue in the core, which just gives us an overall more dynamic appearance to this image, I would say, rather than just big flat blocks of color. Having that subtle change is really going to take your image up to the next step, I would say. But only one step is required for this one. I reckon that's far enough in this case. So we will close that mask down at this point. We're kind of done with that. And now, as I said, I was going to try and demonstrate to you how to get rid of this background bias as well, since it went wrong in the first place during masking. So to do that, I'm going to go to Process and Mask Generation. If my eyes would work, there we go, Mask Generation Range Selection. I'm going to use screening for this so I can see exactly what's going on. I'm going to keep raising up the lower limit until we've isolated the nebula from the background. So you can see we've got all the nebula selected, no problems whatsoever. If I was just back here, we'd lose the efficacy of what we're about to do next. And if I'm going too far this way, we're going to start nibbling into that beautiful nebula as well. So just a balancing act. Pay more attention to what you're seeing on here rather than where your hand is on that lower limit screen. Apply a small amount of smoothness to this just to break up those sharp edges, as it will look stark in a finished image. And apply that, and we've got something perfectly usable right there at this point. So this is our range mask. I'm going to go ahead and apply this. Now this is going to be a multi-use mask. At this point, I'm going to finish off with saturation adjustments using the curves window once again. So we'll create a transformation, a real-time preview. I'm going to go ahead to saturation and raise overall the saturation of that core just a bit, so you can see if I just bring the view in again for you ever so slightly. Before and after. Before and after. That bit more saturation looks quality to me. Go ahead and apply that. There is a tiny bit of purple creeping in just there in some of those regions. You could, of course, invert and SCNR to get rid of that, but again, just for the sake of keeping it brief and not getting lost in the weeds, I'm now going to show you the next step. So what we do have at this point is a nicely saturated core, and that background is still mottled. So I'm going to go now to Mask, Invert, which is going to protect that core and leave the background selected for us. So once again to Curves, Preview, Saturation once again, and now if I just bring the kind of view in where you can see these background regions, I'm just going to pull down and kind of desaturate them. That'll really, really take the edge off. They're no longer dominating the image. It's only nibbling into the very outer edge. The Pac-Man right there, just slightly more careful masking would have gotten rid of that. But we can just re-invert the mask and make another small adjustment. So invert, curves, saturation, just up a touch. And overall, I think we've got a nicely balanced image. At that point, none of the background's taking over. The core is well saturated and overall well processed, I would say. So we can discard that mask and now get to the kind of last phase, which is just putting the stars back in using rescreening math. So in my case, I'll just use my own little tools there. Stylus, stars, rescreen, and you have a completed image in the SHO style, if you like. So that's how I would go about processing Askar D1-D2 data. Hopefully that gives you enough that you can kind of take that and run with it a bit and work on your own images from that point. But once you've established that kind of initial workflow, I think that's the correct way to do things, getting yourself 3 discrete mono channels to work with as high signal to noise ratio as possible for all 3. PixInsight's your tool to go to for that, of course, I think, but then the world is your oyster in terms of processing, because it's just like processing mono data, really. So hopefully that's been useful. Hope you've enjoyed this one. Just like I say, a quick tutorial session. Hopefully that helps out some people. This was, as I mentioned, originally intended to be like a one-on-one tutorial, but I think this is probably going to be more useful to more people. So yeah, thanks so much for watching anyway, guys. Yeah, look after yourselves. I really appreciate your support, and clear skies.